dudes, how you doing? I hope you're having a damn good day. Welcome back to the channel, and today we will be discussing Chelsea's back five formation, the 5-3-2 formation that they used against the likes of Liverpool on the weekend. And it was funny because damn near Pochettino came out after the game and he was like, oh, you know, we didn't actually use the back five system. It was the normal formation that we had used all pre-season. It was the 4-2-3-1 with just Ben Chilwell playing as the left wing. And I was like, that's a fair take, because I did see that shape a lot, especially when Chelsea were in possession and attacking. But more or less, when they were out of possession, it was a back five with Ben Chilwell dropping extremely deep, more or less paralleled with Reece James on the right-hand side. And that's more or less what we're going to be trying to replicate and recreate in this game going forward, because of course Ben Chilwell is more naturally an attacking fullback. So the ability for him to play as a left winger can happen. Of course, we did see Martin play as an attacking fullback / a winger / right-sided attacking wing. Pochettino is doing these things with these players, and I'm loving it, to be honest. And to be fair, Chelsea were by far the better team on the weekend, by the way. I just want to say that, because so many people have been like, oh, it was a fair 1-1 draw. I'm like, no, it wasn't. The fact that Nick Jackson blazed the ball over the bar, there were a few other Chelsea opportunities, the Mudryk opportunity, of course. So to be fair, apart from the Salah offside goal and the Luis Diaz goal, I don't think Liverpool deserved to draw that game. They were fantastic those first 20 minutes. And I was sitting here and I was thinking, well, you know, actually Chelsea, they could have, I don't know what they've done in the summer, but it hasn't looked like this at all. And all of a sudden, Liverpool started getting a bit more tired and Chelsea started exerting their quality. But mainly it was the likes of Enzo Fernandez and the fact that Liverpool didn't have a DM. They didn't have a DM to try and rush the Chelsea midfield as much as what it should have been. And you could see that how much Liverpool actually desperately do need a DM, which is why the Lavia and, of course, Caicedo deals for Chelsea is just so good for them. Anyway, we're going to go through the team, the tactics, and the formation, of course. Smash the like button. Anyway, we've got Nick Jackson, Sterling up front. We've got Carney Chukwuemeka, Enzo Fernandez, and Gallagher in the midfield. We've got Reece James, Disasi, Silva, Levi Cole, who was a left back / left-sided centre back. And then, of course, we've got Ben Chilwell. And then starting in goal on debut was Sanchez. On the bench, we've got Mudryk, Ugochukwu, Martin, Cucurella, Bettinelli, Gusto, and then Chalobah. And then in the reserves, we've got Caicedo. Of course, we've just heard the here we go from Uncle Fabrizio Romano. We've got Modueke, Ziyech, of course, a bunch of really good players. And of course, I have put Lavia here because we don't know just yet if he is going to go to Chelsea or not. I'll look like an absolute fool after making the Caicedo to Liverpool tactics and then he didn't go there. Then I made the Caicedo and Lavia tactics to damn near Chelsea, and it would be funny if Lavia doesn't go to Chelsea now. So you know what, it is what it is, but I think he will end up going there because Chelsea normally tend to get what they want. Anyway, as for the formation, as you can see here, it's one goalkeeper, 3 centre-backs, 3 central midfielders. There's no like one attacking midfielder, one defense. No, it's 3 central midfielders, 2 wing-backs, and then, of course, 2 strikers. So as for the tactics over the weekend, I think Pochettino was very happy to keep his shape and his structure and more or less force Liverpool to make the mistakes. I mean, the idea of being able to put pressure on the heavy touches, make sure that they're running at the opposition's backline, making sure Van Dijk and Konate, as well as Robertson and Trent, they were all under pressure. I mean, we saw them hurry the likes of Alisson quite a bit. Of course, he is probably the best goalkeeper in the world, so you're not going to force many mistakes out of him. But in case you do, you can then be proactive and reactive with it. As for the width, it was more of a man-to-man type system, of course, and eventually when Liverpool did get tired, you saw it work a bit more. You saw Chelsea more or less wrestle over and overpower the likes of Liverpool in their midfield, of course. And in those first 20 minutes, it wasn't working for Chelsea, but eventually it did. And maybe it was because it's the first game of the season, players aren't fully fit yet. But in saying that, it worked really, really well. You saw the way Chelsea dominated possession. Like Liverpool would get the ball and then try and spring a quick counter-attack, and Chelsea would just be there to sweep up. I mean, time and again, Thiago Silva positioned himself just to intercept the quick ball and then calmly, damn near 39 years old, just pass it out and find another player and retain possession. Of course, as for the depth, it was a bit of a high line, and like I said, in terms of the width being at 50, it was exposed in those first 20 minutes. I mean, Salah could have had a goal and an assist. Of course, it was ruled out for an offside, but he did get the assist, and that was because Chelsea's high line was exposed. Levi Cole on that left-hand side, he was exposed by Salah's pace, but eventually it did help because when Liverpool did get tired, you were able to see that line pressing higher and higher up the field and just more or less compacting Liverpool in their own half, making them try and counter-attack as much as possible. But it was a nice safety net of a back three to just be able to make sure that they were positioned correctly, just to collect the ball, pass it off, find the likes of a Reece James, Ben Chilwell. I mean, Malo Gusto even came on as well. So it was a high line, and to be honest, it worked very, very well, apart from those first 20 minutes. As for the build-up play, it is set to balance because, of course, you do have the likes of Nick Jackson and Sterling who are quite pacey and can hit the counter-attack. And, of course, we did see when Mudryk came on, they were more or less open to having the quick ball over the top and running behind. So you can have it set to slow build-up. Of course, Chelsea were very good at doing that, building up from the back, of course, passing through the phases of the pitch, of course, building it up to the goal. But in saying that, you don't really want to just have that. You want to have the ability for Ben Chilwell and Reece James to bomb on forward. I mean, we saw the combination play between Sterling and Reece James from time to time on that right-hand side, and was fantastic. The ability of Reece James just to whip in balls first time. Fantastic. Anyway, as for the chance creation, it's set to forward run, so you want the likes of Nick Jackson and Sterling just to be able to stretch the likes of Konate and, of course, VVD. And you just want to have a bit more pace about it in the front line at least. And of course, you are supplying them with the likes of your fullbacks in Ben Chilwell and Reece James. And of course, you do want them creating opportunities and space for that midfield three. And speaking of that midfield three, as well as the width, of course, it is set to 70. So you do want to try and feed the wider areas, the Reece Jameses, the Ben Chilwells. But in saying that, you want to try and create space for the likes of Enzo Fernandez. And they were very, very good at doing this, making sure Liverpool were very stretched when they didn't have the ball, making them more tired than anything else. So them chasing down the ball, of course, Jurgen Klopp likes to play this rock and roll type system where they're just running all the time. But if the first game of the season, they're not fully fit yet, they can't do that the entire game. Those first 20 minutes, it was really good. But after that, it was not good at all. And you could see how the likes of the qualities of Enzo Fernandez came out with more time and space on the ball to be able to operate as the out-and-out box-to-box player that Chelsea knew that they were buying, and he was fantastic. Honestly, he was amazing. As for players in the box, in the gameplay above, it is set to 7, but I felt it was too many players in the box, and Chelsea went with a fairly cautious approach. They didn't want to overcommit too many players because they wanted a nice defensive line in case Liverpool did try and break on them. So I've just dropped it down a little bit here to 6. It makes more sense. The likes of Carney Chukwuemeka will be making late runs into the box. Enzo Fernandez will be in and around the box trying to receive possession, tick over the play, of course, find passes, but mainly you do want the likes of Sterling and Nick Jackson to get in there with the likes of Ben Chilwell humming in and around that back post area if you are crossing from the right-hand side, and likewise for Reece James if you're crossing from the left-hand side. As for corners and free kicks, as per always, my dudes, it is set to 4. Starting off with Sanchez, he is set to come for crosses and be a super keeper. We saw him claim quite a few crosses on the weekend, and he was really good at that. Of course, he is very, very tall. He's not Kepa, who's not going to claim crosses. I know Chelsea fans, when they saw him claim that one big corner that was fired in and he claimed it, he came out, he was strong. I know Chelsea fans were like, thank you, because Kepa has never damn well claimed a cross in his life in his time at Chelsea. So very good at doing that. And of course, at Brighton, he was an amazing super keeper. The ability to find a nice 40-yard pass, fire it into fullbacks and so on at Brighton. I think we will be seeing a bit more of that. Of course, his kicking wasn't that great, but of course, you could probably nail that down to the nerves and the tension and everything. Of course, it's a big game. It's Liverpool, and it's your debut for a massive club like Chelsea. So fair play to him. He did fairly well, and I think he will improve going forward. As for Silva, he is set to his basic defensive set of instructions, but as for Colwell and Disasi, they are set to have a balanced attack, normal interception, but step up. So you want them to more or less step up, drive the ball into the midfield from time to time, creating overloads for the likes of Enzo and Gallagher. But also you want them to play a little bit higher, creating the idea that Silva will be the furthest back player. Whereas if you are hustled on the ball or harassed on the ball, you can always find the likes of Silva or Sanchez, and then more or less draw the opposition out and be able to then fire balls in behind those players that make the run actually trying to press up high. As for Reece James and Ben Chilwell, they have the same set of instructions, of course. Both of them are set to join the attack and overlap. You want them as involved in the game as possible, because it's always been the opinion of mine anyway, and most people to be fair, that when Chelsea's fullbacks and the likes of Ben Chilwell and Reece James are playing well, Chelsea tend to win games. And I mean, we saw that when they won the Champions League, of course, they were absolutely instrumental in that run. And when they've had good seasons, both Ben Chilwell and Reece James have been fairly productive in those seasons. So as you can see there, Ben Chilwell, he's got the same set of instructions on. But also, I forgot to mention this. they are set to stick to position. You don't want the likes of Levi Colwill and Disasi stepping up as well as your fullbacks. It's a give and take situation here. So I've gone with Levi Colwill and Disasi doing that, with the likes of Chilwell and Reece James more or less sticking to their positions. As for the likes of Conor Gallagher, might I say he was absolutely immense, making huge tackles. Like, he was really, really good, and people will not want to hear that. Chelsea fans will not want to hear that. They just want to try and sell him. And to be fair, he was fantastic, and he's been really good in Chelsea's pre-seasons. I haven't watched every game, but the games I have watched that he has played in, and that I have seen of him, I thought he was really good. Especially when you don't have the exact midfield that you need right now. He can be a really good rotational piece going forward. But anyway, he's set to stay back while attacking, stay on the edge of the box, aggressive interceptions we saw with those big banging, crunching tackles. Of course, he's set to cover the wing and stick to position. So he is going to have more or less that solid stick to position, make sure that he's covering that back four, make sure he can throw bodies or throw his body on the line, put in big tackles, of course. But mainly, you do want him to be on the edge of the box to help the likes of Enzo Fernandez and Carney Chukwuemeka rotate position, find passes, also create overloads for the likes of Ben Chilwell to then operate in that space. And then, of course, stay back while attacking. So he will be slightly further back. So if you do find yourself passing the ball around too much and you need to try and stretch the defense, just pass the ball back to him and then allow the opposition's defense to run onto you, and then you can open up spaces like that. As for probably the man of the match, Enzo Fernandez, he is set to have a balanced attack. So he was more or less, how I viewed him, was the linking player. Of course, he was the box-to-box type player. And I think with the likes of Caicedo next to him this season, really, they're going to be really, really good. And I mean, even adding Lavia into that, I mean, a midfield three of Lavia, Caicedo, and Enzo Fernandez is going to be absolutely crazy to me. Like, I am very, very excited and frightened to see what that can look like. Anyway, he's also set to stay on the edge of the box, like I mentioned earlier. He's going to try and rotate possession with the likes of Gallagher and Chukwuemeka. Also, normal interceptions are on. He's not really the guy who's going to launch into tackles and try and be as aggressive. He's not going to be like an N'Golo Kante. That's why you need the likes of a Caicedo or a Gallagher next to him in order to do that. Of course, he is set to free roam, so he will show for the ball a bit more. He will try and operate in wide open areas where he can have time on the ball, and that's why he was so good in that game against Chelsea, because he was allowed to exert his quality on the game by having so much time on the ball. The idea for him to be able to pick out a pass, not be hurried with it, of course. And then mainly he is also going to try and operate in the middle of the park as much as possible, so you're not going to see him drifting wide or covering the wing. That's not his role, that's not his job. If you look at his heat map, it was literally the centre of the park was big and red, and he was all over the place in that centre of the park, of course. As for Carney Chukwuemeka, he is set to get forward, get into the box, normal interceptions, stick to position, and of course cover the wing. So you want him more or less operating in between the likes of the opposition's midfield and the defense. You want him to try and pull the likes of Virgil van Dijk out of position from time to time, or maybe even try and pull the fullbacks out of position to create space for the likes of Reece James. And I think he did a fairly good job. I was very impressed with him with his ability to pick out passes, of course. He tried to feed the likes of Nick Jackson and Sterling one too many times. I'd say that it was a bit forced after a while, but it was very good for a young player. And I think he's got a very good, bright future. As for Nick Jackson, of course, the guy who could have scored a goal, he blazed it over the bar, but I think he will get better as well. Also, £35 million, there's not that much pressure on him, and I think he will eventually come right. I mean, he's not wearing the number 9 jersey at least. That, as a person who knows that Chelsea fans know that there's a stigma about that number 9 jersey, and he chose 15, I think you know what, he's going to be a great success. His work rate is fantastic. But anyway, he is set to have a balanced width, so he will look to run the channels from time to time, try and close down passes, but also just drift wide and try and pull the likes of Konate or Trent out of position, which he did do time and again. But also the ability to switch play with the likes of Sterling, of course, being able to just interchange with him was quite nice, but also his ability to get in behind and, like I say, stretch the play. His aggressive interceptions are set to be on, and of course he is the outlet ball. As for Sterling, he is set to drift wide, get in behind, normal interceptions, and of course have a basic defensive support. So he will look to try and drop into the midfield, collect the ball, and then charge at the opposition, also drawing out the opposition's defense, of course. But mainly his ability to drift wide, operating that wide right-hand side, along with the likes of Reece James, creating a nice tandem, little 1-2 passes around the corner flicks. We saw it against Liverpool, and it worked very well. There was a time where I think Sterling flicked the ball onto Reece James, he fired him across, and that was when Nick Jackson actually blazed the ball over. But then there was also a time where Sterling passed the ball to Reece James, who ran down the right-hand side and then passed it back inside to Sterling. who could have gotten an opportunity, and I think that was the ball where it came off Trent's knee and it went for a corner or something. So, you know what, their partnership, I know Sterling isn't really loved at the moment by Chelsea fans, but I think with a bit more consistency in this team, and you will see it become more consistent, I think you could see a more consistent Raheem Sterling. So that is more or less the set of instructions and tactics I have gone with for this back five formation, the 5-3-2 formation, of course, under Pochettino that we saw on the weekend. I think maybe in the bigger games he will look to resort to this set of tactics, just to be a bit more pragmatic in games, because I know in the past Pochettino, he's more or less gone gun-ho and tried to attack the opposition, especially in the Premier League with Spurs, and more times than not he would lose against a top 6 rival. So I think his time away from the Premier League has taught him a few valuable lessons, and I think more or less with more quality added to the squad, of course you've got the likes of Caicedo coming in, this team is looking very, very good and very, very scary. So yes, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new. This is my set of tactics for Chelsea's 5-3-2.